he could also name a Planeswalker if he's behind, if he needs to name Elspeth or something like that. So Wear and Tear can take out both a Pithing Needle and the Detention Sphere. So a lot of options for Steven. He basically has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards he could bring in.
Yeah, Jacob Wilson has pretty much the same array of cards. He has a Negate, 3 Gainsays, a Jace Memory Adept. One thing that he does have that Steven does not have access to is 2 Dispels, which will help Jacob win the Sphinx's Revelation War in the matchup.
Yeah, so he can counter Sphinx's Revelation for only 1 mana, which is pretty important because a lot of times you don't want to use one of your 3 mana counter spells on Sphinx's Revelation because you can expose yourself to a Planeswalker on your opponent's main phase. So
yeah.
Dispel, definitely one of those important cards in this matchup.
Yep, another one which I actually see control players boarding in a lot in the mirror is that one of Glare of Heresy. It can hit a Detention Sphere, and more importantly, gives you another way to hit permanently an Elspeth.
Yeah, because it exiles the card, so there's no way it can get shuffled back into their library. But yeah, for Steven being up a game here, I have to say it looks pretty good for him because after board, those counterfluxes, they're basically the same deck, except he has 3 counters in his deck that cannot be countered. So he can make sure that those Planeswalkers or that, more importantly, Elixir of Immortality does not resolve.
Right, and yeah, it moves the focus away from Jacob's spells to Steven's because Jacob can't defend his own spells anymore. You know, if Steven needs one of Jacob's spells to be countered, well then that spell's going to be countered. So Jacob has to try to fight over Steven's spells instead, and that's where a counter war happens, and Steven can have a lot more control because Steven was the one who casts the spell in the first place. Steven has control over when that counter war is going to happen.
Yeah, another important part of Steven's deck is he actually has 4 Temple of Triumphs in his deck, whereas Jacob has 2 Temples. So having those extra Scrylands definitely helps in the control mirrors as well.
Yeah, just the extra Scrylands. This is a matchup where having those extra non-basics really doesn't punish the player at all. So, you know, yeah, more Scrylands are just tend to be better in this matchup.
I have to say this is Steven's deck it's an interesting take on blue, white, red because in general when you see people playing blue, white, red decks, they have much more of a red splash. You know, sometimes you'll see them play cards like Assemble the Legion, Is It Charm, even a card like Mizium Mortars.
Yeah, I expect Anger of the Gods even.
Yeah, they'll play a lot more red cards, whereas Steven is basically just Cunio's blue-white control deck, just with counterflux more or less.
Yeah, I would have to think this is one of the matchups where that very light red splash is at its best.
Yeah, because again, it's not like you're playing splashing red for any of those cheap red burn spells against aggro decks, or for Assemble the Legion against mono black Devotion. It's basically just for counterflux, which is at its best in the control mirror.
Absolutely. So we see players they're going to be getting ready for game 2. Jacob has a little bit of a easier time because in post board the Jace Memory Adepts I think give Jacob a little bit. He gives him more chances to win the game.
Well, Steven has his own Jace as well, though. So
right.
I think, I don't know, I feel like both players have effectively the same number of win conditions. Jacob has maybe 1 more Mutavault, but that's really...
That's not really, it's unlikely that'll be a win con.
Yeah, so really, both players have effectively the same number of win conditions, and I think they both have the same number of counter spells as well after board, except Steven has those 3 counterflux.
Right, so Jacob will be hard-pressed to say resolve the Jace Memory Adept. It's not that he has more win cons than Steven. I think it's more that in game 1, Jacob was unable, like his deck's very poor at putting pressure on the opponent. You know, all his spells are reactive because his game plan is basically based around Elixir of Immortality, but that was a spell he couldn't fight over. So at least Jace Memory Adept gives him a spell that if he manages to resolve it, does put a lot of immediate pressure on his opponent.
Yeah, the real key here is Steven basically will have access to 3 counterfluxes in his sideboard, in his main deck now, and the only card that he really needs to counter is Elspeth and Elixir of Immortality. Obviously, Jace Architect the Thought is a possible way of Jacob winning because he can actually get his Elspeth into play that way, but then Steven has the Tension Spheres for it, so I don't know.
Would you add Jace Memory Adept to the list of spells he needs to counter?
Yes, so Jace Memory Adept, Elspeth, and Sphinx, Elixir of Immortality, those are the only 3 cards that Steven is really, really scared of.
Yeah, and conveniently has 3 counterfluxes.
He has 3 counterfluxes. So it is going to be very difficult for Jacob to sort of get one of those cards to resolve if if there's parity. Like if both players are drawing the same number of cards and hitting their land drops, then Steven should inherently just have a slight advantage because of those counterfluxes. So Jacob's going to have to hope to navigate this match pretty well and continue to make his land drops. Obviously, the control mirror is all about who can continually make their land
Well,
drops.
he's going to have to get Steven to counter something that isn't one of those three cards with a counterflux. He's going to maybe have to set up a board state where Steven has to counter a Revelation maybe with the counterflux, or
Yeah,
counter a Jace,
it,
or
it really depends on how if he can get Steven to make a mistake and pull the trigger on a counterflux when he doesn't have to. Because if Steven does play conservatively though and knows that there's only really three cards that he has to really concern himself with, then I think he won't cast a counterflux until he sees a card named either Jace Memory Adept, Elspeth, or Elixir of Immortality. So it looks like Jacob is comfortable with his 7, although Steven is going to mulligan down to 6 here. And again, mulliganing in this matchup, obviously not ideal, but not as bad against other matchups because, again, there's not going to be a lot of fireworks in the early games. It's going to be a lot of players just playing lands.
yeah, I mean, all Steven really needs to do is hit his land drops. So if he's on a mulligan, as long as he has lands and ways to draw more lands, the mulligan should be just fine.
Yeah, so let's see if he's going to be happy with his 6-card hand. Obviously, you want to make sure that you draw those divinations. And that's another advantage that Steven has. Steven has 4 copies of divination in his deck, whereas Jacob only has 2.
Yeah, Steven's deck definitely is built slightly better for that long game. In the main deck, Jacob has decided to play cards like Last Breath, which is a card that Steven doesn't have. Obviously, in this matchup, that's not going to be very important.
Mm-hmm. So Jacob has basically a 2 dissolve, 2 counterflux split, and he still has those 2 syncopate. So the counterspells, yeah, the counterspell count is very similar between the 2 decks. However, having 4 copies of divination is also something that's really, really huge here for Steven.
Yeah. So we'll see here. Steven on 6.
Let's see, Steven's okay with it. Looks like he is. So looks like we're going to see a game here. Azorius Guildgate is the first play for Jacob.
Yeah, we are underway. Both players here basically trading lineups. You do see the Jace Memory Adept in Jacob's opening hand, so he does have at least one card that one of his 3 must counters is already here early in the game.
So good start for Jacob here. He's got a divination. It looks like he has that Jace Memory Adept, and also he has a Glare of Heresy too. So going to answer a Detention Sphere if it comes down to target that Jace Memory Adept.
Yeah, so a second Temple of Triumph from Steven. First one kept a card on top with the Scry. We'll see about the second one.
So 2 temples here. Steven currently only has access to 1 blue mana.
Yep, card was kept on top. You see a lot of lands in Jacob's hand. He does have his first pseudo threat in Mutavault.
Azorius Charm is going to get cycled here.
Yeah, but both players really just making land drops. Let's see that they have a couple answers in their hand for various threats that their opponent might be able to put down. Steven has a Wear Tear in his hand, for example. We see Jacob has a Glare of Heresy.
Steven puts a Hallowed Fountain into play and elects to play it untapped, taking 2 damage. The damage isn't that relevant in this matchup, not nearly as relevant as having access to 2 blue and representing a counterspell.
Yeah, and for a second I thought he might be casting Jace Architect of Thought there, which would have been huge for Jacob, as it would have let him untap and cast back with Jace Memory Adept, which would be stronger. But it is actually not that, it's just Steven playing a land untapped.
So Jacob did draw a Dissolve for the turn, and now he's going to activate his Mutavault and attack over.
Yep, so we see in Steven's hand he has that Wear Tear, he has a Divination, he has a Jace Architect of Thought, he also has an Elixir of Immortality in his hand.
And another Mutavault comes down for Jacob here,
Right,
and he has access to Dissolve and threatening to attack with 2 Mutavaults next turn.
Yeah, so he's going to be able to create
unlikely.
a bit of pressure by leaning on those 2 Mutavaults. He can maybe force Steven to actually cast something like that Jace Architect of Thought.
It also gives him a way to attack Jace Architect of Thought, which means that if Steven wants it around, he won't be able to downtick it right away. So Steven here, looks like I'm not sure if he has a 5th land drop. He might be going for Elixir of Mortality here.
All right, he's going to go ahead and cast Elixir. I have to think that Jacob's going to try to dissolve this.
I don't think Jacob cares about it. I don't think he wants to fight over it right here. He's not in a good position to fight over it.
Yeah, it is his only counterspell if he uses it.
He could he could be thinking Steven's trying to bait it out of his hand, but I don't think Jacob cares about a follow-up Jace.
Well, I think Steven waited to play it now so that Steven could have his own counterspell backup for it.
I think I think Jacob would be fine with that though.
Yeah.
If Steven,
To trade dissolves here.
yeah, if he dissolves the elixir and Steven tries to counter back, that'd be great. So, but Jacob, yeah, Jacob's just not really in a position to fight over it, so he lets it resolve, and I think he's okay with just pinging the life total away with the Mutavault.
Yep, Mutavault, activates Mutavault. That'll hit Steven down to 14.
And looks like Jacob does have another land drop for the turn, so it's a pretty good start for Jacob. He's making all his land drops. He has a Jace in his hand. He has a counterspell, and he has Mutavault threatening Steven's life total. Yeah, Steven does have that dissolve in his hand, so he does have a counterspell, but ooh, and it looks like he drew a Mutavault of his own, so that'll help him a little bit.
Right, he can start trading away some lands if he wants to.
So Steven, it looks like he does have that Jace Architect of Thought. Don't know if he wants to cast it just yet. He wants to, maybe he wants to get to 7 mana.
So he still has dissolve for a possible playback.
Yeah. Looks like we're gonna see 3 mana for a divination, perhaps.
It's what it looks like here. We'll make sure. Yeah, he's going to draw 2 here off of divination. He leaves 2 up so that when he hits a 3rd land here, he can still have his dissolve.
Yeah, you don't really want to fight over the card draw in this matchup, and here Mutavault gets played, so he has dissolve mana up. He also can activate Mutavault, but if he activates that Mutavault, it means that he can't counter anything. So don't see it getting activated this turn.
Yeah, and now another dissolve in hand for Jacob. When he gets up to 8 mana, how tempted do you think Jacob will be to go for the Memory Adept with dissolve?
I don't think he cares about that just because of counterflux. I mean, he can't.
Sure,
if
Steven has the counterflux. Now,
matter.
look at the board state here, though. If you read Steven's lands right now, Steven taps in such a way that he doesn't actually have counterflux mana up. So it's possible that you can get a read here that Steven's on dissolve and not counterflux.
It's yeah. I mean,
it's not a 100% read by any stretch.
Yeah, I agree. The way that Steven tapped, it kind of telegraphs somewhat that he has a dissolve, not a counterflux, because he could have played the Mutavault first and used that
right
to tap. So yeah, I agree. It could be a slight telegraph that he has dissolve, which he does. He does have dissolve over the counterflux. So
we'll see if Jacob just sees that as a green light to try for Memory Adept. It would certainly be, I think, a pretty bold play to try for it. But if he believes Steve,
if you got that read on him and you knew that he had the
dissolve and no counterflux, yeah,
I think it's worth going for it there, just because even if he has the tension sphere, you have the glare, so it's a huge turn for you if you can get it to resolve.
We'll see. Steven on the draw hits.
Looks like another
divination. And he's going to fire that off. And once again, he's not leaving up the red. And I think this is very big. I would be surprised if Jacob I don't think he's going to respect the counterflux anymore.
Well, the thing is, he wants to leave up that Mutavault, but the thing is, there's no way he's activating Mutavault. So
right.
I would just
even if Jacob's attacking, he's not going to activate the Mutavault now.
I think he kind of wants to hint at, oh, maybe I'll activate my Mutavault and block yours, but you did that last turn, and Jacob still attacked with both Mutavaults, so you know Jacob is not afraid of that happening.
Well, I mean, if he were to activate Mutavault, Jacob could activate Mutavault attack, and if Steven trades, then Jacob could just resolve an Elspeth, for example.
Yeah, I don't see you activating. I don't see you activating your Mutavault in this situation, so why not leave up a red mana to make sure that you can telegraph counterflux at least.
All right, so Jacob, rather than going for the Memory Adept, just elects to hit for 2 with Mutavaults. That puts Steven down to 11, and within a 3-turn clock of the Mutavaults.
So here, is this going to be another divination? Okay, so it looks like he's finally starting to telegraph.
Yep, and it is another divination. Yeah, and I do think Steven noticed that turn that he wasn't leaving up any red mana for counterflux.
So it could be one thing here. It'd be huge if you can get that Jace Architect of Thought to resolve, and he has his own Mutavault. Then all of a sudden he can start upticking Jace, and the Mutavaults aren't nearly as impressive. So Steven's game plan here is really just to try to get that Jace Architect of Thought in play, keep making my land drops, and then try to force that through. He does have Sphinx of Revelations as well, so that's going to be another way for him to kind of gain some life back and try to bait out a counterspell from Jacob.
So we'll see. With too many cards in hand, Steven discards a Detention Sphere. That'll put the turn back on Jacob. He draws a Pithing Needle for the turn.
So Pithing Needle. Oh, but Steven does have the wear tear, so
All right.
this could be huge for Steven because Jacob might not even fight over Jace Architect of Thought, thinking that, oh well, I have the Python Needle, I'm going to be able to turn it off that way. So uh, this could be a huge next few turns for Steven here. Yeah, because Jacob's hands, he's got the. It looks like he's got double dissolve. He's got the Glare of Heresy. He's got the Jace Memory Adept. He now has that Pithing Needle, but um, I don't know. It's Steven still looking pretty good here with that Jace and the double Sphinx of Revelation.
Well, as this game goes longer and both players, in quotes, draw their entire deck, you have to think that this favors Steven just because of the counterfluxes. So at some point, Jacob has to put pressure on this game, whether that's through Mutavaults or through that Jace Memory Adept. He's got to do something because if they just get to the point where they both draw their whole decks, play elixirs, shuffle up, draw their decks, play elixirs, that loop favors Steven.
Yeah. So Jacob here suddenly started. He slowed down a little bit. I think he can kind of sense that the tide is changing a little bit, and he wants to make sure he has double dissolve mana up. And he plays a land, and it looks like Steven's going to get his turn now. Steven elects not to cast Sphinx of Revelation yet. Draws. Oh, it's not a land. So ideally, he would want to land there so he can make his land drop and then give himself a little bit more options. I'm not sure you want to cast the Jace just yet.
Yeah,
Let's see. He does go for it.
all
Is
right.
Jacob going to fight over this?
Well, Jace isn't one of the spells that Jacob has to fight over.
Although, okay, so, Jace resolves, and he's going to down take it right away.
Counterflux, Gainsay, and land. And
Uh,
now he knows that Steven has the counterflux.
So I think you have to take counterflux here. You can't take the land gainsay.
Unless he already has the counterflux, I think he has to take it. Also, we noted that Steven's plan to victory here was to pair his 3 counterfluxes up with these 3 crucial spells of Jacob's. If he doesn't take counterflux, it means that counterflux is on the very bottom of his deck, which is the last place he really wants it to be.
Oh, wow. So Steven does elect to take the land and gainsay, and now Jacob's going to be able to cast the Jace Memory Adept with counter backup. Steven does not have enough mana to go, unless he has a second gainsay, and now he even discards a Detention Sphere. So
We'll see if Jacob goes for it here.
yeah, I think Jacob has to feel pretty good about trying to go for a Jace.
Well, I would try it. I don't know if it would actually work, It's he's got to do something.
Jacob, I don't see if Jacob just passes here, it's terrible. It's terrible for him. I mean, he doesn't know exactly what's in Steven's hand, but yeah. So it looks like he is just gonna go after the Jace Architect. I thought so. Steven dodged a bullet there.
Yes, I think Jacob just put Steven on having a counterflux.
Yeah, he could have. Yeah, if by not taking the counterflux, maybe he sort of Jacob kind of thought, oh well,
He must
maybe
already
he's
have
telegraphing
one.
that he has one already. Yeah. So that must be Jacob's line here. So he decides to just go after the Jace.
Yeah, but I think what he's trying to do is create enough pressure with the Mutavaults that Steven will have to start counterfluxing something that isn't the Jace, and then Jacob's going to hope to resolve the Jace.
Wow. So Steven draws another gainsay. So now he has 2 gainsays along with the dissolve in his hand, and now he can play that second Jace if he chooses. Although I kind of like just passing the turn and casting Revelations to draw more land.
Yeah, well, he's going to go for the Architect of Thought again, and we'll
is he gonna
probably
uptick
minus it.
Yeah, so that's great. And
Oh,
he has
it's
the
uptick.
Mutavault up as well. So this is a perfect situation for him. He has access to Gainsay. He also can activate the Mutavault and block. And Jacob's Mutavaults will be smaller. So, ooh, and there it is. We talked about it.
Jacob does play that Pithing Needle. Got to assume it's naming Jace Architect of Thought, which,
And
to be fair, Jacob also plays 3 of.
yeah. So, but this is going to be, this could be a tough spot because Steven does have that wear tear. So let's see if Jacob's going to make another play this turn. Oh, so
Okay.
it looks like Jacob is deciding what he wants to name with Pithing
So
Needle.
the needle has resolved, but now remember, Jacob doesn't have to name Pithing Needle until it resolves. So little does he know that, yeah, Steven, well, he doesn't know that Steven has a wear tear in his sideboard. In the top
Yeah.
8, players get access to each other's deck lists.
Yeah, so there is perfect information. Both players know each other's deck lists. You don't know whether or not he has the wear tear in his hand. So Steven is actually contemplating whether or not he wants to counter Pithing Needle. So Pithing Needle is on the stack currently.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he wants to counter it.
No, I definitely would not counter it at all. So Steven comes to the same conclusion. It looks like he did point at Jace Architect of Thought and passes the turn back. Now the question is, does Steven want to cast it now? I think you just cast
I
it
think
because you.
so. It's you get more card. Yeah, and he's gonna go ahead and wear right. Yes,
Yeah.
wear away the wear the
In
artifact.
order to stop this, Jacob is going to have to use both his dissolves because Steven does have a gainsay in his hand.
So do you think so? Jacob can fight over this. One of the advantages to fighting over this, and this sounds kind of silly, in these control decks by having a counter war every once in a while, it empties your hand so that you can refill it with other cards without discarding. It's yeah, which is a
I,
thing.
I'm more concerned with just losing both my counter spells here, and well, I don't know. This is a tough situation. I think Steven might have been better
Oh
off if
wow.
he just Steven might have been better off if he just untapped and passed the turn back, because then you could definitely get your Wear to resolve and you'd have a Jason in play. But now it looks like Jacob is going to have to fight over this.
Yeah, so this is all on Jacob's end. So Steven dissolves the dissolve. Jacob dissolves the dissolve. This is dissolving the dissolve. So you have three, three dissolves on the stack.
And now
First one
Jacob's going to be able to
resolves.
scry. Looks like Jacob just has a land,
And
a glare, and a dissolve in his hand, and a Jace Memory Adept. So he has one counterspell left along with that Jace.
all right, so Pithing Needle does resolve. It does name Architect of Thought.
And
Steven doesn't have the Wear Tear in his deck anymore, so the only way he can get that needle off the board is with a Detention Sphere.
yeah, so but still in good shape. He does have the Elixir too still that he shuffled back in, and he has Sphinx of Revelation in his hand. Jacob drew an Elspeth, but
He might be able to force some action with that Elspeth if he believes that Steven's low on counter spells. At some point, it may become right for Jacob to just start jamming threats.
it's a risk though. He hasn't done it yet, so I don't see things changing for him. But it looks like he's going for it now. I guess he thinks that it's if he fought over the Wear Tear, maybe he's out of counter spells. I'm just gonna try for it now.
And it looks like it works. Elspeth Sun's champion does.
Is he?
Yeah,
Did it
does
resolve? Or so I'm not sure
Let's
where
see.
we're at in the stage of the game. If whether
Well,
or not it
the
resolved.
die's not on the Elspeth yet, which makes me think the Elspeth's on the stack.
Yeah. So yeah, I would hope it's on the stack because Steven definitely should respond to this.
If he has something, he'll fight over this. Remember, this was one of the 3 cards that we put check marks by. There are 3 spells that have to be countered.
Do not like this play at all.
He's gonna
Sphinx of
Revelation
Revelations for this is
for 5.
this is a very very risky play here for Steven.
Yeah, Steven has left up 2 mana because he has a Gainsay in hand. So he's hoping just to have this resolve.
Yeah, so that Elspeth is going to resolve, and then he's all in on a Detention Sphere to stop that Elspeth. But the problem with that is you know that you have to contend with cards like Glare of Heresy, so it might not even matter. But let's see here. Steven draws 5 cards there. I'm surprised he wouldn't just counter the Elspeth. Like we said, that's really the Elspeth, Elixir, Jace Memory Adapt are the only cards that you should really care about. So does he have? No. So Elspeth will resolve, and Jacob's going to make 3 tokens here.
All right, so 3 more tokens into play. Well, if Steven has, he could have the Detention Sphere.
He he
discarded 2 of them,
he
right?
definitely discarded 2 Detention Spheres this game. So, and it looks like he's going to cast Azorius Charm to put the Midavolt on top of Jacob's library. And Jacob still has Dissolve mana up, and he has that Glare in his hand to deal with any potential Detention Spheres.
A draw from Phillips is another Mutavault.
So yeah, Elspeth threatening to take over this game, and I'm not sure what Steven's plan here is. He doesn't have, it doesn't look like he has a Detention Sphere. He had, I'm pretty sure he had a Dissolve in his hand, or no, he had a Gainsay. So maybe he did use the Dissolve the last turn, so he might not have had a counterspell in his hand.
Okay. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he spent the Dissolve. He had a Gainsay.
So Steven trying to figure out what he do. He has plenty of cards. Not sure how many of them can contend with an Elspeth, though. Does he have his own Elspeth? That's the question.
All right,
So it looks like he just has to discard. He's going to discard a Steam Vent and pass the turn back.
yeah, I think he's loaded up on Jaces, I want to say, or Islands. He does have a Sphinx's Revelation left in hand, so he
Yeah, he's
can.
got a Sphinx Revelation. He also has it looks like a Syncopate in his hand, but that's not going to be that useful for him right here. So we're probably going to see a large Revelations fire off at the end of Jacob's turn to try to dig for more action. Obviously, he does have Detention Spheres left in his deck. He does have another copy of Elspeth in his deck. He also has a Ratchet Bomb, but that's really which can deal if he can get the Ratchet Bomb into play, that can kind of deal with maybe the Pithing Needle or maybe some of the Elspeth tokens. But
All right, Mutavault attacks for Jacob. None of the soldiers, though, just the Mutavault. Steven will take it and drop to 10.
yeah, Jacob leaving back those soldiers because of Steven's Mutavaults.
Yeah, just playing extra. He's playing extra cautious to make sure he doesn't lose the Elspeth.
Yeah. So if Steven draws Detention Sphere and Counterflux, he should be okay because the Detention Sphere can take out the Elspeth, and then Counterflux will stop the Glare of Heresy.
Right.
But he's really going to need, yeah, he's drawn 6 cards here. So let's see if he can get those key spells. Drawing 6 cards, gaining some life, so he still has time, but he's going to have to draw something good here. And he's just going to untap for the turn. Let's see what he gets.
Remember, there were 2 spheres in the yard that he put there. He has
Oh, wow.
up to 2 more in his main deck. Whether or not he kept them all in would be a bit of a question.
I think that's a Pithing Needle. So yeah, he does have a needle here.
Needle back on the Elspeth.
So that is a way for him to deal with Elspeth. Now, can he deal with the tokens? That's the question.
Yeah.
He has 2 Mutavaults, so they're not going to be able to be attacked. But he tapped one of the Mutavaults for some reason to cast the Pithing Needle.
Yeah.
So,
oh yeah, you're right.
so now, I mean, I'm not sure if Jacob's willing to attack with all of them, given Steven's life total. But still, you probably want to leave both those Mutavaults up.
So unlike Steven, Jacob does not have a wear tear or something like that in the board.
Yeah,
He
Detention Spheres are his only
Just
way.
has the spheres, yes.
But if he Detention Spheres the needle,
he has
then
his own
needle
needle,
is
so
going to go too. So let's see what happens here. And we're going to get Elixir come down. That's going to give Steven a little more life and get his graveyard back into his library so he can get some of those Detention Spheres back. And it looks like now we're just going to discard down for the turn. It looks like he has, I think he does have a counter spell. He has double Gainsay Sphinx Revelation, or maybe triple Gainsay.
yeah, he also has a Syncopate in hand, so he has plenty of counter magic.
Yeah, so he discarded a Jace and 2 lands, it looks like. And he's probably just going to shuffle those back into his graveyard at the end of... Oh, he's going to get that Wear Tear back, too. So that's huge. So Jacob just draws a land for the turn, and suddenly that needle changes this the entire game again, because now Elspeth is no longer a threat, and those tokens can kind of get held back by the Mutavaults.
Yeah, Jacob has to just attack here. His hand has really stopped being controlling. The only move Jacob can do is he can just jam the Jace 5 and hope it doesn't get countered. It's a pretty big hope. Jacob does have a Dissolve to protect it with.
Yeah, he knows about 1 Gainsay because of the original Architect of Thought reveal. So,
but you have to, if you're Jacob, you have to think that after a rev for 6 that your opponent has more than 1 counter spell.
yeah, so it looks like he's just going to jam everything in there. One of the 6 tokens will probably get eaten by a Mutavault. And then Steven takes 9.
That will drop Steven to 7.
Yeah, so Steven goes to 7, but he still has oh, he also has an Azorius Charm, so you can choose to put a Mutavault on top of the library. This is great because this will basically shut off another draw from Jacob and make it so that the Mutavault can attack next turn and save himself 2 damage as well.
Exactly.
So, Steven only going to take 7 this turn, drops to 9. He could end up going up to 14 if he chooses to sack the Elixir now. I think he kind of wants to, just because drawing a Wear and Tear here would be huge. So let's see what Steven does. I think he wants to make sure that his graveyard is in his library before he fires off that Revelation.
Right.
I think he might have in his hand, not sure, but either way, I think you're going to want to draw that. Give yourself the option to draw that Wear Tear.
Looking at his counter suites, he does have, we know, a Gainsay, a land, a Syncopate for certain.
So, yes, it looks like we are going to get an Elixir activation at the end of turn.
Yep, just slightly improve his draws. Get that Wear Tear back, for example. Get those Detention Spheres back also.
Yeah, get your Detention Spheres back. Get those Sphinx of Revelations back. So Steven going to reshuffle his graveyard into his library along with that Elixir. And
so I'm going to throw out kind of just how degenerate this matchup sometimes can get. Say Steven draws the detention sphere and detention spheres the tokens, I don't think it's unreasonable for Steven at some point to wear tear his own sphere so that he can shuffle it back into the deck.
Yeah,
Like, is
there's a lot of options for Steven, but it's really gonna. He still needs to find something to deal with those mutavaults. So
hmm
again, I think Steven's in good shape here, but he can't get overly aggressive. He just has to
well,
be patient.
he can right now trade them with his own mutavaults, right?
Oh yeah, he does have two mutavaults now. That's right. He did play another mutavault a couple turns ago. So he's gonna need those to hold back the tokens though.
Right.
So it looks like he drew an Azorius Charm. That's a good draw. He has that Sphinx of Revelation. So Steven in pretty good shape here. Jacob just has that Memory Adept, a Glare of Heresy, and Dissolve, and he's just going to draw a Mutavault for the turn. So Steven in really good shape here.
Yeah, Jacob trying to, get those last points of aggro out with the Mutavaults and the Elspeth tokens, but because of the double Mutavault on Steven's side, he will fall a little short on this line.
I think Steven should just take this and fire off a Revelation. I mean, you can basically gain the life back anyway, so there's really no reason to activate your Mutavaults just yet.
What would he be looking for on the Revelation? I think I agree with you.
I think if you can get that Wear Tear, then you can uptake your Jace and completely turn off those tokens and the Mutavault attack. So, but it looks like he's gonna slow things down a little bit and just cast another Azorius Charm. So now you know he has a Mutavault in his hand, and Jacob's just gonna run another one for the turn. Two tokens are gonna get eaten, and now Jacob's just gonna attack for 3.
Yeah, and you notice that Steven only went to 11 on that play. He's down to 3 Elspeth tokens. Really does not have enough firepower left to finish off this life total of 11. Not to mention that there's a chance that Stevens has yet more revelations.
Yeah, so Steven's going to play a Temple for the turn and pass the turn back. So now let's see if Jacob even decides to attack this turn. Looks like he's going to make the same attack as he did last turn, but can't be too happy about it. Not really doing much to, not really making much of an impact on this game. No. I wonder if Steven's going to try to just cast the Sphinx Revelation this turn.
Right,
Yeah.
Mutavault swings at Steven. Yeah, will he Revelation? Now he will take 2. I think the board is stable enough that he doesn't feel too pressured anymore.
Yeah, now I think you want to just cast your Revelation.
Yep, go big. And we'll see it's the Revelation. It is going to be for 4.
Yeah, you have.
I think double. He's gonna leave up double Gainsay probably.
I think he has 5 mana up, so I think he can cast it for more if he wants.
Yeah, I want to leave 4 up. I think if I'm Steven.
So it looks like he's only going to cast it for 4 here.
All
so
right.
Gain 4 life, go up to 13. Let's see what kind of gas he can get here. Can't really make it out.
Yep,
so he's
not
gonna
yet.
untap
Some
for the
number
turn.
of lands are in there.
Probably a lot of awesome draws he can get. It looks like he drew another Sphinx
Another
Revelation.
Revelation. That is one of the fun parts about the Sphinx's Revelation is it does tend to be a combo with itself in these decks. Revelation will draw Revelation.
So Steven has plenty of mana to work with, a lot of counter spells, and another Revelation. So he hasn't totally swung the game in his favor just yet, but he is poised to do so. Jacob will get to finally draw a non-Mutavault for the turn.
Yeah. Good point.
So
All right.
see.
What has been waiting on top of his deck for these last few turns?
Steven just discards a Steam Vent for the turn. And
Oh, wow.
so it looks like on Jacob's upkeep, he's going to cast.
Another Revelation?
Really? This is interesting. He wants to cast it on upkeep. I guess he has the counterflux, so he's not that concerned about.
Yeah. I think he didn't want to have to discard right away. That's why I think he's timing it right now because.
Well, no, he already discarded for the turn. He definitely discarded it.
Yeah. No, I know. So if he done this on his turn you mean this instead of Jacob's
I don't
end
know
step?
Yeah, why not just do it at his end step? I mean, I know you might be afraid of him drawing a counter spell, but it's unlikely Jacob's not really in a position.
Jacob didn't counter the Revelation for 4. He's probably not countering this one either.
Yeah, so, but either way, with Steven having counterflux at least in his hand, it's going to be hard for Jacob to resolve something anyway. So
yeah, and Steven has kind of gotten to the infinite Sphinx's Revelations point of the game where he just can cast Revelations and Elixirs and Revelations and Elixirs in every turn.
Yeah, Steven should kind of realize that he's at the point of the game where it's going to be very difficult for Jacob to fight over that card draw anymore. So he has to kind of conserve his counter spells to either counter a high impact spell like Elspeth or use it to force through his own spells. But Either way, Jacob activates both Mutavaults and sends in with the team.
Well, he said one of the 3 spells that he has to counter is down right now. You know, it was Elspeth, Jace, and Elixir of Immortality were the 3 must counters, and there's a needle on the Elspeth. So as long as he keeps counterfluxes for the other 2 spells, he should be fine.
Yeah, so Mutavault gets activated by Steven and eats up one of the tokens, and now Steven's going to untap and draw for the turn. He has a handful of cards. There's a Detention Sphere. I could take out those last 2 tokens, but I don't see it necessary just yet. Like, there's really no reason for him to cast the Detention Sphere just yet. Looks like he can just play a land. Not sure if he drew anything. Not sure he's making the best use of these revelations. I mean, he definitely revelated for 1 less than I thought he could have the turn before. And now it looks like he's just going to discard some cards for the turn.
Yep, he's hanging on to, what is it? Flux, Dissolve, Gainsay, 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 Syncopate, Detention Sphere.
Another revelation. So
Another revelation.
yeah.
So he's just got, that's 8 cards. He has to pick one of those to go away.
He's got Divination as well. Yeah, just all counter spells, no action just yet. So
we'll see. The discards are, and you know your Syncopate, 2 lands,
Sphere.
Detention Sphere.
So Jacob draws a land for the turn, and Steven's almost to the point where he can start double blocking those Mutavaults with his own Mutavault.
Yeah, I think Steven's getting, feels like Steven has turned the corner here.
Yeah, so Jacob just going to attack with Mutavaults now, so the tokens aren't going to get exposed to getting eaten by Mutavault. Steven could try to just say, "Forget, I'm done with these Mutavault battles. I'm just going to eat them up now, and then maybe I'll Detention Sphere the tokens or something." But
yeah, he has enough resources that he can probably afford to use the Detention Sphere that way.
Maybe he just wants to cast another big Revelations. So it looks like he's just going to take 4.
He's going to go to 6. And just, so you're feeling another big Revelation coming?
Yeah, I would Revelate for everything. Leave 4 mana up for double Gainsay and just Revelate for 4. Or for
I would have my plan to be to do that every turn this game. I'd be like, all right, Revelation for everything -4. And be like, all right, Elixir, crack it. Revelation for everything but 4. Just, you know, I'm going to make your life so miserable.
So Steven takes 4, drops to 6, I believe. Jacob doesn't really have a good play here other than just playing a land and passing for the turn. He could try to get that memory adept, but, you know, I'm not quite sure. Facing down an opponent who just discarded 3 cards, not sure how ideal that is. So let's see what Jacob decides to do. He's just going to play a land and pass for the turn.
And here I think comes another Sphinx's Revelation. What is it for?
He's been a little conservative with these Revelations in the past few turns. Let's see if he's just going to go for a much bigger one.
So right now it's for 1, 2, and he's counting higher.
Maybe, yeah.
Leaving up 4. All right.
Is he? I think he has some more mana off camera, but yeah.
This is for 7
leaving
at
up
the
at least
moment.
4. Leaving up at least 4 or 5 mana, and he's going to be doing it for 7. Nope. Looks like a 9.
8, 9. All right, sure. Revelation for 9. That'll put Steven to 15 if that resolves. No, I like it. I like going back to the 7. 7 should be plenty.
Yeah, so Revelation for 7, leaving 5 mana up. Again, I don't think you need to do it. I think you can afford to just leave 4 mana up. But
sure.
By the way, Steven, 7 cards, a lot of cards. So.
And I think at this point, Jacob is building up a counter magic fight for Steven's Elixir of Immortality. I don't know if Jacob expects to win that counter fight. In fact, he probably expects to lose that counter fight. But it's the only fight left that he can really fight over.
I think he's still hoping Steven makes a mistake. Like we're at the point of the game where Jacob is just hoping that Steven gets a little too aggressive or makes some sort of mistake and gives him a window.
Right.
Because obviously your opponent's drawing. You're
just drawing 8 cards a turn.
Over 30 cards over the course of the last 3 turns. So I don't think Jacob feels happy about it, but he can't afford to fight over the Sphinx Revelations just now. So it looks like Steven did draw an Elixir of Immortality off of that last Sphinx Revelation.
And there's the Elixir. All right, see if Jacob chooses to fight now. It'll be a losing battle most likely, but it'll be a noble one.
Jacob.
It's fighting the good fight.
Yeah, he's going to try. He's going to try for it. But no.
No, not even trying. Okay.
Phillips just plays a Hallowed Fountain. Now we're going to get discard for the turn, it looks like.
So eventually, if you haven't seen this entire thing play out in a control deck, what will happen is Steven will eventually put all the lands in his deck into play. And every turn he will cast this Elixir, and he will cast a Revelation. And he'll just continue doing this. Eventually he can, maybe he'll wear tear that Pithing Needle, plus the Jace, get all the permanents off the board, ultimate the Jace.
All right, so the Detention Sphere comes down. It's going to deal with those tokens. Or
It'll hit the
interesting.
Elspeth.
So it's going to hit the Elspeth.
That gives freedom for him to use another sphere to hit the Pithing Needles.
Hmm.
Because now the Elspeth doesn't need to be needles. And then he can use his own Jace again.
So now we're going to discard down 7 and pass the turn back.
Because eventually he does have to get rid of both those needles. The only ways that Steven actually wins the game are Jace, Architect of Thought, and Elspeth. And right now there's a needle on both of them, which means I think he does have to get rid of them at some point.
Yeah.
Now granted, he can wait until the game's very, very over before doing that.
So Jacob draws another counterspell in Negate to give himself, if his plan is to try to force down that Memory Adept, give him a little more options. But he's just going to activate both Mutavaults again, dropping Steven down to 9.
And it looks like Steven is he's just going to crack Elixir, so he'll net gain 1 life.
Okay, so he goes up to 14, and he's going to shuffle his graveyard back into his library.
Steven's deck's getting a little thin here.
Yes, but
about half of it's in play.
He can never get decked. So don't think he cares. But yeah, Steven has so many counterspells, but I think he has to stop. He has to start turning the page here. Like start the.
But that's the point though. He never has to turn the page,
that's
right?
True, yeah, he doesn't really have to do anything, I guess. But
he could, in theory, just cast Revelations and Elixirs, and then count the number of cards in Jacob's deck right now and say you're going to die in that many turns.
I suppose as a viewer, I'm just hoping for a more exciting. So divination from Steven here. He's going to draw a little more cards here.
Got to go find the Elixir again. All right.
So he draws a Detention Sphere and a blue card. They can't make it out. Detention Sphere. Yeah, not sure.
Well, no, I think he has to sphere the needles. At some point, he's got. I guess he could win by just making Jacob draw 1 card per turn.
He could win by just decking Jacob. He doesn't like.
Yeah,
he can
and we don't mean decking as in milling Jacob. We mean as in just letting Jacob draw for a while.
Yeah, I don't know. Needle here. You could do that. Yeah, you could. The Detention Sphere on Needle means basically that if he's doing it this turn, it would make sense why he went after the Elspeth last turn. So let's see here. Detention Sphere by Steven. Let's see if Jacob's going to let it resolve. So yeah, he's going to hit the needles. Now he can uptick his Jace, turn off the Elspeth tokens, and Jacob won't be able to attack with his Mutavaults.
The best part is if he ults the Jace, there's not really a card to cast out of Jacob's deck.
Yeah.
He'd cast Jacob's Elixir, probably. If it's still in Jacob's deck and not his hand.
Yeah, so even if Jacob does glare the Detention Sphere, both needles just come back into play, and nothing really changes. Steven could even name Mutavault. So.
Right. So both Mutavaults here are going to attack Jace, Architect of Thought.
And this is going to be a losing battle here.
Yeah, they're 1/2s right now, so Steven's Mutavault will win the Mutavault fight. Jace goes down to 5.
Oh, wow. And yeah, Steven used one of his Mutavaults for mana, so he could only block one of them. Ooh, Jacob drew a Fiendslayer Paladin. Interesting here. He boarded in the Fiendslayer Paladin.
Well, those aren't the worst to board in. They provide early game. They can actually put pressure on Jaces to help you maybe get that early game advantage. I mean, obviously at this point in the game, it's not really a card.
I don't think it's ever really a card, but
yeah. What if we say that there aren't very many things that are cards? So
yeah. So Steven just dissolves the Fiendslayer Paladin. He's going to scry now, and I'm not even sure he needed to. Not really
dissolve
sure he needed
that.
To, yeah, with 2 Mutavaults and a Jace, you really don't need to dissolve there. But I guess he just figured he had so many counterspells, doesn't matter. Now he draws Jace Memory Adept, so looks like he's going to Foff here. Interesting.
Sure, draw cards. Sure, more counterfluxes. I mean, you can't really say it's wrong to draw cards.
I don't know. I think he might want to just uptick there. And
he could, yeah.
If you can go Jace Ultimate and get your Elspeth into play that way.
You know what I mean? There's no need to Jace Ultimate. He can't. Right. I mean, I feel like he's choosing between winning strategies here. I like the Jace Ultimate too. It provides some sort of closure to the game, but drawing more cards is also a fine plan.
The only problem is by doing that, it doesn't turn off Jacob's attacks just yet. So
Sure. So if you're worried about
you're gonna
Jacob hitting you,
you're gonna lose one of your Mutavaults. I don't think you want to lose a Mutavault, given that Jacob does have another Mutavault left in his deck. I just think like
how's he gonna lose? Oh, because their Mutavaults have to trade.
yeah, they'll have to trade. So I just think if you're just patient and just keep upticking Jace with the handful of counterspells, you really can't lose.
Yeah. To be fair, can Steven lose this way?
No, but it just it basically turns off it allows Jacob a turn to attack.
Yes.
Which you know I agree. I think it's looking very good for Steven, but I just don't think you need to FOF there. But
all right.
Either way, Steven has multiple counterspells in his hand. Looks like he has the Jace Memory Adept too lurking in the winds.
All right, we will see.
Yeah, Jacob did draw. I think he still has that Memory Adept in his hand. He has a Memory Adept Glare. And, oh, he drew a Sphinx's Revelation for the turn.
So I'm a little disappointed to think if Jacob had won this game 2, or if he manages to win this game 2, we stand a very good chance of setting a record for the longest match on camera here.
Yeah.
I would just say, you know, we're 95 minutes almost, and we're still in game 2.
I've seen a 2.5-hour match before. It was a Psychotog Mirror.
I think we could break it. If this was a game 3, it's not. It would be possible to break that. We're at 95 right now. I'm just saying you're only 55 minutes from breaking that.
So Steven is gonna play Jace Memory Adept, and that is currently on the stack.
All right. So question for you: have you ever been part of a 0-0 draw in a sanctioned game of Magic?
I have not. No.
Okay, I have once ever.
Really?
It was a Mystical Teachings mirror with both players playing Gaia's Blessings.
Oh wow! Oh, that sounds awful. So Jace Memory Adept getting cast here, and again.
All right, Jacob's gonna try to fight. He has to. All right, this is Jacob's gonna have to throw out the counter spells. I don't think he expects to win this counter war. We will see Gainsay from Jacob.
I'm not. This is basically giving Jacob a window back into this game.
Yeah, by trying to cast, by fighting over this at all.
Yeah.
Yep, Gainsay for Gainsay.
It's not going to be good. It's still very bad for Jacob, but.
Well, the thing is, because Steven has this counterspell wall, he should just use that counterspell wall to make sure that Jacob never resolves anything. By using counterspells to protect his own spells, he's unnecessarily using his counterspells, right?
Yeah. Because, theoretically, let's say they have this counter war, Steven taps most of his mana, and then Jacob uses a Glare in the detention spheres. Steven then uses a counterflex on that. If Jacob resolves a Memory Adept, mills Steven, and hits that Elixir, suddenly this game is much more difficult for Steven than it had to be.
Right. So Jacob. So you said, yeah, I completely agree. Steven just needs to not.
It's like
don't play the counter war.
I just feel like he's doing too much. As long
yeah, you're too aggressive. Too aggressive.
Your plan should just be uptick Jace go, uptick Jace go. So all right, Steven's expending a lot of mana and counterspells on this turn, which is exactly what Jacob was hoping for. I mean, he was patient.
Yep.
He was waiting. Obviously, he's down a lot of cards on Steven, but. This is what we said. This is one of the ways that Jacob might be able to pull it out if Steven makes it.
What you can do with Steven is that to be fair on Steven's side, if Steven has more counterfluxes than Jacob has cards in hand +1, Steven can feel pretty safe. If he has a counterflux for every possible card Jacob has.
I am firmly in agreement that Steven probably feels pretty safe.
Yeah.
My only point is he could just say uptick
Jace
go.
He could be doing nothing.
You could feel much safer. You could feel so warm and safe and cuddly and cozy by just saying uptick Jace go.
Right.
There's nothing cozier than that. Having 30 mana up, 7 counterspells in your hand, and saying uptick Jace go.
Right. All right, so let me resolve this. Dissolve resolves first from Steven. It counters Jace's dissolve. He scries. Now the Gainsays trade. Now Jace comes into play, getting rid of the other Jace, and it's going to be a mill for 10.
Yes.
And once we hit the Elixir, that should do it.
Well, the other things are your Mutavaults. Aren't your Mutavaults tapped now?
Oh no!
So now
he's going to kill the Jace.
Isn't he just going to attack
4,
Jace with the
5, 6, 7, 8. You didn't hit it, and he didn't hit the Elixir. Oh no!
He didn't hit the Elixir. So
Jacob could find this window here to
So
How good would it be if Jacob hits the elixir
well,
now?
this is what we were talking about. I mean, Jacob. It looked really bad for Jacob. Steven drew so many more cards than Jacob,
Well,
and I'm not saying it's great for Jacob
no,
now
no, no.
either. But the thing is, he needed to be patient and hope that Steven made some sort of critical mistake. And now we see a huge revelations for Jacob.
This is bait,
This
by
is
the way.
yeah.
This is definitely bait.
Now,
Because now, okay, he's gainsayed. Steven only has one counterflux up, not two. Jacob can, if he draws top deck's elixir here, he can cast Jace Memory Adept and elixir, and one of them will resolve.
yeah. So let's see what Jacob draws.
Jacob
here.
has an out. Draws if he draws the elixir, and he draws Temple of Silence.
Play perfect, get punished. So
Right. If he drew the elixir, like Jacob could have had this, right?
it would have changed. It would the whole game would have changed. So, but I'm not sure if he has
Had it, yeah, but
the game does change though.
His
But
0% becomes something bigger than 0.
yeah. So Temple of Silence here. He can scry. He could still. This turn could still be really good for Jacob though, if he can get the Jace Memory Adept off the table. So let's see what happens here.
Well, he's going to try for his own Jace Memory Adept. He wants to see the counterflux. And it's gonna be there. Can't think Steven. Well, if you're Steven, what? You're a little worried that he's going to resolve. I don't know, you just have to counterflux this.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much mana he has off the side. I see one Hallowed Fountain. I'm not sure if he has more than that.
All right, next best thing, he's going to go ahead and he's going to hit the sphere with the needles under it as opposed to the sphere with the Elspeth under it, which is correct.
And I think that's fine because when your needle comes in, you can just name
Jace.
Jace, yeah, or you can name Mutavault.
Oh, and if Steven names Mutavault,
So
didn't Jacob need? Wait, why didn't? What if Jacob first uses the Mutavaults? Oh, does he only have one Mutavault now?
Yeah, I think Jacob might have been better off maybe
Attacking the Jace.
activating Mutavault and attacking the Jace with both his tokens. Although, I'm sorry, there was a Jace activation. The Jace Architect.
The Architect
was
Plus.
So yeah.
So he
it was
can't
plus.
kill it. All right, good catch.
So Jacob will just have to get that needle into play and name Jace Memory Adept now. So Steven, yeah,
right.
Mutavault can come in, and I'm not sure. Yeah, we're gonna get a confirmation as to what those needles were named. Okay,
All right, so both
Jaces.
Jaces. Both Jaces are named. Jacob named the big Jace. Steven named the other Jace. So now Jaces can't do anything.
Both Jaces can't do anything. Steven should be up on cards in his deck, though, because of that first Memory Adept activation. Although, yeah, so we're going to have, might be a big Sphinx of Revelation here on Jacob's upkeep. And the gate. Snap the gate.
All right. That's not going to work. No, counterflux.
Wow,
All right.
he uses a counterflux. So he doesn't, I'm not sure if he has any counterfluxes left in his hand.
Well,
Hopefully he
does
draws
he's
some.
drawing his whole deck, right? So if he draws his whole deck,
I don't think he's drawing his, does he have?
I mean, he's almost certain to hit elixir, reshuffle.
No, he's not drawing his own deck.
Okay.
He's drawing
He could
6
draw.
cards
He
here.
could be drawing his whole deck if he wanted. It'd probably be okay.
So there's a wear tear. So that's huge. There's that wear tear that was back in his deck.
All right. There's the wear tear again.
And he chooses not to cast a wear tear now. And he
give
gives
Jacob a turn?
draw. So
Oh, is this elixir? I hope that's elixir.
so Mutavault's just gonna come in.
How sweet if that's elixir.
Oh, so that's good. If he casts the wear on the Pithing Needle, then
he loses the
then
Jace.
He loses the Jace because
Which that would be okay
Jacob would
too.
attack it.
He could lose the Jace, right?
I don't think he wants to lose the Jace.
He could. He could. You know, he could lose the Jace, cast a Revelation, find an elixir, or it would be fine if he wanted to lose the Jace.
It'd be fine for him. It wouldn't be fine for me.
us, because that means this match would go another 10 minutes.
So Mutavault blocks a token. Jace goes down to 1.
And this
untap.
should be it. An untap. There's Elspeth. But
So-
more importantly, here's going to be a Jace 0.
Yeah, so wear and tear on the Pithing Needle or Pithing Needles should.
Yep.
Yep, that should do it pretty much. He has a Mutavault back. He also has he can uptick the Jace, but he's just gonna 0 it. Jacob's gonna get milled for 10.
See if once he hits the elixir, then we're done.
Looks like he did hit an elixir there.
I think that second card at the bottom is the elixir of immortality.
Can't. Oh, not sure. But
No.
either way, here comes Elspeth too. So,
Yeah, I mean,
they're
this
gonna
this
deck
is
you out
good.
in
This
Amelia.
is Steven's got this.
Yeah, so the Super Friends are in play. Some tokens are going to get made. Steven still does have several counterspells in his hand. So Jacob now has to have an answer and a threat. So with only 2 cards in his hand, unlikely Jacob's going to be able to pull out of this one. So Jacob extends the hand, and our 2 seed falls to Steven.
So in a quick 2-0 victory, Steven Phillips defeats Jacob Wilson to move to the semifinals.
So our 1 and 2 seed, Owen Turtenwald and Jacob Wilson,